up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fit for Life with AMB-ANJULI and Ross podcast.
Hey team.
This is a little bit different in that we are doing this on Spotify and Apple as well as YouTube. I thought it would be pretty cool to sit in our new movie room in the house and do a video, and today's podcast is going to be all things comp prep because as of today I am 2 weeks out from comp. So I put up on my Instagram stories asking you guys to ask me questions. So we're going to go through some questions, but Ross has also competed before as well. So how many times have you competed, Ross?
2 shows a while ago now. We're looking at probably, was it 5 years ago was my last one, and then before that a couple of years before that as well. So it's been a while, but yeah.
But yeah, Ross is well informed on what the, I guess, method is for me when I do comp preps. He's also had experience too, so we had a few questions come through for both of us, and as I've competed, I guess, more recently than Ross, I'll be able to answer some of these, I think, in more detail. What is the hardest thing about competing, mental and or physical? Ross, do you remember what it was like to comp prep?
Yeah, I do. I think probably the mental part's the hardest part. Well, it depends on you as an individual. Like, I really enjoy the physical part myself. You know, like I just have always liked physical activity of sports, all that sort of stuff. So even though that part's hard, I guess I enjoyed that part, but the mental side of it can be really challenging. Sometimes you think you're ready when you are ready, and lots of, you know, things like that, really. Yeah.
So I think the difference between Ross and I is he actually did his own coaching for comp prep. So going into your first show, not having a coach, and trying to do it on yourself whilst being a personal trainer and being super active was a lot on you, I think, mentally, and you thought that you weren't ready, but you were just so shredded.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely a mental game, and having a coach can really help reassure you that you are on track, even when, you know, I remember my first show prep at 4 weeks out, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not ready, I'm gonna have to cancel, I'm not gonna get on stage. And at that point in time I was in the best shape I'd ever been in. And even now I, you know, sometimes wake up and I look in the mirror and I'm the leanest I've been since 2019, but it's such a mind game. So I definitely think there is a mental aspect to getting lean for the stage, and of course, like, the self-doubt that might play on your mind. Even if you've done it a few times before, it's, if anything, I feel like it's more pressure because you expect a higher level of yourself, as opposed to being a first comp, I just wanted to step on stage and do it. Then I think the physical aspect of that, like if I was to say what is harder, mental or physical, I would say I also love the physical aspect of it, but this time round, it's a whole new level. Being that you guys can't see my feet right now, but I have my foot all strapped up. I've definitely had a lot more niggles with my body this time round, and that is more taxing than any prep I've ever had before. I've never really, you know, had injuries in a prep, so that is a physical struggle, but also a mental struggle, because you want to be doing everything you can to get on that stage in the best condition of your life, but then it's like your body's also telling you, like, hey, you need to slow down. So I would say mental and physical both go hand in hand when it comes to getting on stage. And at the end of the day, like, dieting is always, like, you're always going to get hungry, you're always going to get tired, and you're always going to get snappy towards the end. So it can definitely be a challenge when you're dieting down for a comp, but in 2 weeks time I will be getting ready to get on that stage on the Saturday, and I cannot wait. It will be worth it. And Ross just has to put up with me for for a few weeks more. What goes through your head right before hitting the stage? Do you remember how you felt before?
My first one, I was real nervous. Real nervous over the first one. It was at a fitness expo in Melbourne too, so there was a lot of people around, whether they were watching the show, whether they were, you know, going around the booths and stuff like that. You know, back when fitness expos were huge. So yeah, I was real nervous. For the second show, I was fine though. Like, once you've got one out of the way, I felt like it was okay.
It's better, doesn't it? And also you have family cheering for your second one, plus me, I think.
For the first one.
For the first one.
It's just you for the second one.
Oh, I forget. See, it's been so long, I've forgotten. But yeah, for my first show, I only had Ross there. I didn't have any family. I normally don't have any family because it is in Australia. For 2019 New Zealand, I did actually have family and my best friend come along with Ross and his family, which was really cool. It makes such a difference. And I know on the Gold Coast coming up, I do have lots of friends and squad members that will be in the audience cheering, which is pretty cool. This time will be the first show that Ross won't be at, but I know he'll be at home here in New Zealand cheering for me, and I'll feel him with me, and everyone will be able to cheer for me that's there as well. So in terms of what goes through my head right before, I like to take a very chilled approach to getting on stage. I make sure that I am ready well in advance of getting to show day, and I've got my, bag all packed. I have everything I need. And I just make sure that I, chill out. I chill out backstage. I don't stress. I listen to music. Usually Ross will be like sitting right in the front row so he can give me a smile when I get on stage. But this time I'll have my coaches in the front, and I'll have some good friends as well as squad members sitting there to cheer for me, which is really cool. But the main thing right before I get on stage is kind of just gratitude for how far I've come and what I've overcome, and the fact that no matter what, each time I'm in the best condition of my life, and that's really something to celebrate. So I just want to have fun on stage each time. What happens when he's bulking and you're cutting? What happens if you're bulking and I want to shred? How does that affect us?
I think, AMB-ANJULI's pretty committed to her goals, right? Obviously with competing, that's shredding. It doesn't really affect you at all, really. It's not very often that I'll be bulking, you'll be cutting anyway, but there are times where that happens, where I might be on a gains phase or a maintenance and she might be cutting, but because she's so committed to her goals, it doesn't really affect her at all.
Yeah. I agree. And same, if I was in a maintenance phase and you were trying to shred, you're so committed to your goals too and disciplined. We don't really, I don't think that in a relationship, because one person's doing something, the other person needs to be doing the same thing. It's very rare, like you said, that we would be on opposite ends. Like, we're both getting married in May, so we both wanted to shred a bit anyway. To be honest, we're both ready to get out of a deficit. I am personally. I know I'm keen to get my calories up after comp. So we both have similar goals in mind, but at the end of the day, I think in any situation in which you have a goal, whether it's to compete, to shred, to gain muscle, it's not your partner's responsibility to make you do the work. Like, you have to do the work. And there are times in which Ross does need to support me more so on comp prep. Like, he had some Sour Patch Kids from gorgeous Wyoli from the squad. She sent us some American treats, but having the Sour Patch Kids sitting on the shelf every time I go in to get water or food or whatever was a bit of a temptation in terms of it's right there. I could easily have a couple. Easy peasy, we just put them out of sight, out of mind. That was so simple. So there's definitely lots of ways that in a relationship you can make it easier for yourself. If you know that your partner always buys Oreos and you struggle to control yourself with Oreos, ask them to put them out of sight, out of mind, or to just keep them, away, or don't buy them even. But it's only in extreme situations in which I might need to say to Ross, like, hey, can you not buy, say, peanut butter? But to be honest, I've just got such a good control, and I know what my goals are now, that nothing is going to stop me from working towards them. Yeah, I think one of the worst times that comes to memory is when I was on a comp prep, and it was my second one in the year, and Ross wanted to have a pizza, and he had pizza, and the smell of the pizza was so good. And then I was just annoyed. I remember sitting on a couch, like, covering my nose because I didn't want to smell the pizza. And then other times where he's been really supportive, and he just left the house one time to go downtown, and he came back and gave me a kiss and smelled like chocolate and like burgers. And he had gone downtown to have a burger and some chocolate ice cream or something without me. And there are going to be times on a comp prep, especially when it's just going to be hard and you just have to suck it up, and it is what it is. If you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the mental side of things being the toughest part, right? Your goals, competing's like on the more extreme end of things when it comes to body composition goals, so you have to be quite mentally prepared to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And also what you said there, it's your goal. It's no one else's goal. It's not Ross's goal to jump on stage. I'm pretty sure you're done with competing, right?
Yeah, never say never, but yeah, it's not something that's too appealing to me anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. How far into a deficit should you consider altering your calories if your body has adapted? And what I'm thinking this is more so on is, how often do you decrease your calories when in a shred? I'll let you answer that one.
Well, if you've plateaued for, I'd say probably a couple of weeks, and you've got a goal date like a show, then you definitely want to look at some sort of change, whether it's a decrease in calories or an increase in energy output, and that's generally what you'd want to do. If it's just like a week or even up to that 2-week mark, and sometimes we just do plateau for a little bit and then it'll keep going, but it really depends on time frames and stuff like that, to be honest. But if you're noticing it for longer than 2 weeks and you've got a time frame, it's far better to be effective in your deficit than it is to keep prolonging it when you're like kind of in a deficit, kind of not. Like you might as well be effective with it to a point and then get out of the deficit. So it comes back to, I guess, time frames. Like competition, there is a set date you have to be ready by. If you're not progressing, something has to change.
Yeah, and definitely if you're thinking you've hit a plateau, I think it's also important that you check out our previous podcast on plateaus, because I think sometimes often people say like, I've hit a plateau, I'm not changing, but then when they reflect on their habits of water, sleep, steps, nutrition, training, they're actually not hitting any of the habits required, especially when it comes to nutritional consistency, which is so important, and that requires you to be weighing and tracking your food. If you tell me, I'm tracking my calories, but you're not actually weighing your food, chances are you're highly inaccurate and you're actually underestimating how much you're eating. And there's a lot of research around the fact that most people actually underestimate how much they're consuming.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, right? Accuracy matters. So you are only technically at a plateau if you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing to 100% and then not changing, which is quite easy to manipulate. If you know that everything you're doing is accurate, take AMB-ANJULI for example with the comp prep, her nutrition's like within a gram, it's really accurate. So like if something was not changing, then it's easy for AMB-ANJULI's coaches to adjust that up for her.
Definitely, and I am an extreme level for comp because it requires an extreme level to get there. So I think a lot of people have been saying like, your progress has been so amazing and 75 to 80 days. And it's like, you have to realize, you see what I put online and I only choose to share a certain amount of my journey. You didn't see me hitting 14,000 steps every day. You didn't see me, doing my workouts when I don't want to, pushing when I don't necessarily feel like it, battling with different injuries and things like that. Everything I do is with the idea of me getting on stage, and that means no extra licks, bites, or taste of anything. We'll go to 30th birthday parties, or I'll go to a family dinner or an event, and I have either my meal prep with me or I've planned to the dot on what I'm going to have, and it's like that every single day. It's not just when I feel like it. So I think it's really important when you're looking at my results and other people's results, you just don't know what's happening behind the scenes, and you have to be serious with yourself. Are you doing the work that needs to be done in order to get the results that you want to? Ross, did you follow the same prep and habits as AMB-ANJULI, and would you compete again?
No, I didn't follow the same habits. Tracking macros, obviously, yeah, that's a big one. So for my first competition prep, I was obviously following a deficit, but I'll do a refeed every weekend. By refeed, it was just increasing carbohydrate. I'll go up to carbohydrates at maintenance in the weekend. For cardio, I'll do hill sprints. So
yes, I remember.
Yeah, to do like hill sprints 3, sometimes 4 times per week, usually about 10. As hard as I could go, like pretty
very hard.
Yeah, be focused on doing the sprints, and then training in the gym obviously. But I was working as a personal trainer, so I don't actually know what my step count was. I didn't count it, I didn't have a steps tracker, but it probably was easily 10,000 a day without tracking on most days. Like I would have clients that wanted to go and do outdoor exercise and stuff like that. I would take boot camps and things like that. I was always on my feet, so chances are I would have been well in excess of 10,000 steps.
Sleep's
always been important. Water intake was high, so sort of that 4 liters or so per day. That was the sort of things. I didn't have a specific step count that I would stick to, but definitely the hill sprints, the accuracy around nutrition. I'd have the weekly carb refeed, just because I was doing so much movement as a personal trainer that I felt like I needed that, and it made a huge difference too. I felt like because but it got lean quite fast. If I didn't do that, it probably wouldn't have been a good idea. And then the second comp prep, I followed carb cycling, which worked really well. I fractured my ankle with 6 weeks to go, so
you did.
like my cardio was pretty much non-existent while I had a fractured ankle. I was on crutches for a little bit, so I could still get in there and do some type of training, but that wasn't ideal. I still wanted to compete though, so yeah, I followed the carb cycling and really just leaned on my diet for that, and it was fine. It came right. Like my ankle was cleared just before comp. I obviously got a bit of feedback around, you know, leg development, stuff like that. Well, probably fair enough if you can't train them properly for 6 weeks, but I still managed to place top 3, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, that was obviously setbacks, you know, injuries and things like that happen. Sometimes we have to work through them.
Yeah,
not ideal.
Definitely, and I feel that right now with my foot, you know, it's just about getting it done. I've swapped out steps. I was on 14,000 steps at 6 weeks out, and I've had to swap that out to riding the bike twice a day. And I did have a question come through asking me, how do I know what the equivalent is on a bike to 10,000 steps? And I've actually had this a lot, because I do get clients that say like, oh, you know, can I use a bike instead of doing steps? And I think it's really important to note that preparing to get on stage is a very different goal to a general fat loss kind of goal. In terms of, I think that walking is highly underrated. I think it's so important to get outside, to get fresh air, to move our bodies. We are not designed to sit down all the time. I would choose to go for a walk over sitting on a bike inside any day. But because I, you know, have like, I guess, tendonitis in my ankle, I can't really do that. It's just going to cause me more pain, and it's already uncomfortable. But anyway, so when it comes to the bike, I'm literally just on the bike in the mornings after my workout doing 10 minutes of bike sprints and then just a 20-minute ride. It's much nicer on my ankle. And then again, I jump on the afternoon for 30 to 40 minutes, just a nice light ride. Again, much easier on my ankle. But I wouldn't recommend doing this if you don't have an injury. If you have an injury and you've been okayed to ride the bike, then by all means do it. But in other situations, especially for general weight loss, overall mental health, get outside, get walking, get some fresh air, and actually enjoy the feeling of moving your body. If I had it my way, I'd definitely be hitting the 14,000 steps every day. I miss it, and it's only been a few days off doing that. It's just, I just think walking is so important. Even you try and make an active attempt to get steps in when you have a desk job.
Yeah, like my body just feels better when I move more in the day. When I sit down too much, or starts to know aches and pains and things like that. If you had to equate it though, like if you were thinking about 10,000 steps, if you were injured, obviously prefer to walk. If you had to equate it, what would you sort of, I guess, estimate it as?
How would you do it?
It'd be 60 to 90 minutes.
Oh yeah, so
at a light to moderate intensity, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, that's good. So that's similar to what I'm doing.
So that's quite a long time. That's another thing to think about. You know, if you're trying to swap it out for that, like, do you really want to be riding the bike for 60 to 90 minutes every day? On top of things, like, you know, if you wanted to be doing that, then great, that's fine. You know, getting steps is part of your day, and getting your movement in is really beneficial. You know, like if you have a sedentary job, taking active breaks is a really good thing to be doing for your physical and your mental health, but also your productivity. Like the link between productivity and movement is, you know, conclusive. So, you know, like do that. Like that's really what it's about. It's not about doing all of your 10,000 steps at once. It's about spreading it.
Yes, couldn't agree more. So yeah, taking the steps instead of the elevator, making sure you park your car a little bit further away, going for a walk in your lunch break. Those things I love doing. So I do find it a little bit hard right now to just be, you know, doing my workout in the morning, doing a bike, and then trying not to move in the day, and then going on the bike again. Like I would love to be able to just break up my day with a lot more walking, to be honest. How do you feel about seeing and competing against old clients of yours? So I have to say, there are some incredible women on the AMB-ANJULI Fit Squad that have gone on to compete and are going on to compete. One that pops to mind is Mel. She's in Cincinnati. She actually turned pro in her first ever WBFF competition after working with me for a year and then going on to my comp coach as well. So I send the AMB-ANJULI Fit Squad on to Alicia Gowans, who's my comp coach now. I know that they'll be in good hands with her, and that's usually after working with me for 1 to 3 years. So I am very excited to be backstage with squad members like Sarah Moore, who is going to be competing with me. We're both using Ali as our coach. We'll be in the Gold Coast together, and honestly, I couldn't be more proud to see the squad going on to slay their goals beyond, because I believe that when you start out with the right coach and you build a good foundation and you commit to actually putting in time to shred, reverse diet, and go into a gains phase, like Jess Ryan, who is on the squad as well. She worked with me for 2.5 years before I put her onto Ali to then compete this year. So if your goal is to compete, I don't want you to think of it as like, okay, I just started, I want to compete in 3 to 6 months. You have to think of it as an overall lifestyle. So me on comp prep, the only thing that really changes is, one, obviously I add in posing, and 2, it's an extreme consistency of nutrition. But year round, I'm hitting water, steps, sleep, macros, all of that anyway. So really it is a lifestyle, and then it just comes down to an extreme consistency and adding in a few little things towards the end, such as, you know, HIIT or increasing my steps or posing and things like that.
Yeah, totally. Like it's not something you want to rush into if you want to do competing, because you've got to have like a really solid muscle base prior to doing that shred, right? Because you get down to quite, you know, extreme levels of body fat percentages for both, you know, men and women when they do it. It's quite an extreme level of, I guess, habit consistency that is required. You know, it's if you do really well, if you're really accurate with the current habits that AMB-ANJULI suggests on the squad, and you stick with nutrition plans and you're good with that over sort of, you know, a couple of years, then you might want to look at competing, because it takes that plus some, you know, it takes that and a lot more, you know, it's really quite an extreme level of things.
Definitely, and I agree. I mean, Ross and I both trained for years before we did our first competitions.
Yeah, 7 or 8 for me.
Yeah, mine was just a few years, but I think like the people that do well in competing are the ones that see it as a long-term thing. Like some people, yeah, they will turn pro in their first show, whereas others it will take 4, 5, 6 or more times. So it really depends on your goals. If you just want to step on stage like I did for my first show and have the time of your life, sure, by all means you can go do it. But if you want to actually feel amazing in your prep, have a good balance throughout the prep, and then have a good post-comp and actually enjoy the journey as much as one can when you're dieting down, then it does pay off to build enough muscle to get your calories nice and high and to start from a good point to prevent yourself from having a really hard post-comp like I did first shot. Do you completely eliminate alcohol consumption during prep, if you even drink at all? So I'll let you start on this.
I think if we're using the goal of competing, well, 100%, there's no way that I'd be drinking alcohol at all during a prep, because, you know, if you think about an average beer, for example, it's 150 calories. You know, when you're competing or doing that shred for competing, that 150 calories is so valuable that, you know, you could be using that for some fuel that's going to actually help you transform your body better, or help you, you know, have more energy in your workouts, which is like, that's essential, and that's the difference maker, right? In competing, you know, it could be the difference maker for your sessions that week. During competition prep, for me, never touched alcohol. During a normal shred, yeah, I'll have it. Like I had beers last weekend with some friends that came round and things like that. But like my goal was not as serious as competing, right? I just wanted to drop a little bit of body fat for Rarotonga, which is where our wedding's going to be. So that's, you know, it's a different goal, and it is a longer time frame. It's not like I want to hit a certain body fat percentage or anything like that, which competing is. But yeah, competing's quite on the extreme end of things. I don't really know too many people that would be drinking too close to a show.
Me neither. I don't know. Like, I have heard of girls that really want to have wines and stuff before their shows, and some of the bodybuilders will have like wine the night before a show and things like that. But to be honest, I'm not a big fan of drinking anyway. Ross loves a casual beer. I've never been really someone that super enjoys alcohol. Like, yeah, if we're on holiday, when we're celebrating getting engaged and things, I'd have cocktails. I might have bubbles 2 to 3 times a year max, but otherwise, like, I don't socially drink just for the sake of drinking. I enjoy water. I enjoy like now 0 calorie kind of drinks that are out there. So I don't drink in general, pretty much, I would say. But when it comes to competing, boy, oh boy, would I never waste my calories on alcohol. And even when I'm shredding, I don't look to have alcohol, only because, like Ross said, recovery is so important, so is performance. If you want to look your absolute best and feel your absolute best in the gym and outside of the gym, like, you can't expect to be putting things into your body that aren't going to help aid recovery, maintain if not gain muscle, and just make you feel your absolute best, especially when it comes to getting a good night's sleep. So for me personally, I don't touch alcohol. I don't remember the last time I had a drink. Maybe it was New Year's Eve, might have been the last time I had a drink, and if I did, it would have just been like a glass of bubbles, I think, if that. For me personally, definitely not. And even if someone wanted to drink on a shred, like, by all means, yes, you can drink on a shred. If you're on lower calories, you're under 1,500 calories a day, and you're telling me you want to have like a glass of wine every night, it's a hard no from me personally. That's just not the best use of calories. Like, yeah, if you want to have a glass of wine in the weekend, go for it. Plan in advance, fit it into your calories, and enjoy a nice balanced lifestyle. But you have to realize, like, comp prep is not balanced. It is not something that I think is for everyone. And I've spoken about this many times before in my comp prep Q&As on YouTube and things. If your goal is to get to an extreme level, you have to take things to an extreme level, and that's what I'm doing this time around. It's what I've always done, and I cannot wait to get on that stage in 2 weeks' time.
I think, yeah, just the final sort of point on that is that it again comes back to being accurate and accuracy, right? And like, if you've got certain macro targets you're going to hit, alcohol on its own is its own energy unit. You know, you're not going to be hitting your macros if you're including alcohol, which is, again, the whole accuracy thing. Kind of even like leans into meals out and things like that too. It's not something that you do like close to the competition day anyway. You know, maybe early on in the prep, if you're sort of at that sort of 16 or 20 weeks out type thing, yeah, as you get closer to it, you know, even meals out aren't a thing. It's really something to think about, you know, like it is on the extreme end of things for sure. So it's not for everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, it does require a very high level of commitment.
Actually, I just want to add to that too, eating out, because a lot of people say, like, oh, you know, I want to eat out. Yeah, you can eat out and stay on track if your goal is to shred in general, but eating out and tracking your macros isn't necessarily accurate whatsoever. You have no idea how much oil they're putting into the foods. You have no idea how many calories are in the sources. So usually in general, I don't eat out from 8 weeks out from show, but this time around, I don't think I've eaten out in the 10 to 12 weeks plus range. I don't remember the last time we ate out. So it really, again, depends on your goals. Of course, like, if I did have to eat out by some chance and it was like a breakfast at like between the 8 to 12 week mark, I'd literally just have eggs on toast, and it would be no butter, no anything else, and the eggs would be poached, it wouldn't be fried. It's applying all the tips that I usually recommend to people when eating out and looking to stay on track. So again, that's not something for everyone either. If I was going out with friends or family, I'd honestly just drink water, and that's fine with me because I know what my goals are, and it's no one else's job to do the actions that I required for me to achieve my goal of getting on that stage and knowing that I did everything that I could. So it is extreme. You can't expect your partner to have to go through everything for you. This applies to comp, but also your fat loss journey. Like, just because you want to lose weight doesn't mean your partner has to stop eating the foods that they want to enjoy. Like, Ross still has his ice creams daily. We still will eat together, but, you know, I'm using the air fryer and cooking our foods in different portions and things like that.
Yeah, and then that whole supportive thing, right? Like, I have an ice cream, but I won't offer her some, you know? Like, it's not like I'm, you know, trying to force anything on her or anything like that. And that's something to talk to your partners about too, is to get them to be supportive of your goals. Of course, they don't have to change their, you know, total nutrition themselves, but, you know, perhaps they could not offer you the wine or things like that if that's something you were trying to cut out, for example.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to open communication with the people around you and what your goals are and how they can help support you. And Ross is very good at supporting me, so thank you. Okay, that wraps up today's chit chat. That was really cool, just to go through Ross's comp prep journey and mine as well. Like I said, I cannot wait to get on stage in 2 weeks' time in Australia. And yeah, that wraps it up. We'll catch you on the next podcast.
See you in the next one.